we went to Red Bay.
Red Bay.
Red Bay.
And that was...
He was with Loyal American when we was at Red Bay. I know that. Because he had to make weekend. He had to make several days. He was gone several days every week, just about it, working out away from home.
I think we moved to Red Bay. If I remember correctly, we left the middle. It was probably December because it seems like I only got halfway through third grade, and then I went and finished third grade in Red Bay. So it had to be in December between semesters that we moved, because we were only in Red Bay half of third grade, and I went to all of fourth grade in Red Bay.
We didn't stay but 18 months
right.
there.
Because we came back here, and I went to Brewster for 1 year at fifth grade. And then 6th, 7th, and 8th to Ellie Wilson.
Yep.
So.
Okay, but I was trying to think. Well, when we moved back home, he'd already worked for Chevrolet. He'd already worked for them. So that must... I honestly don't remember. When I don't remember when the job with Jim Bishop came open.
Oh, I didn't know he went to Jim Bishop. I thought he was only with Gene Crump.
Gene Crump. I don't know how many years he worked until he got a church that's made enough money. They insisted on full time, not.
Well, that would have been New Hope, because I think the entire time we were at First Baptist of Littleville, he was working for Gene Crump. Because the reason I can match the dates up is because he bought that Camaro for Cheryl when she graduated college, or she was about to. Let me think about that. Because she graduated high school in 77. Well, the car was a 1979 Camaro. And I know he didn't buy it new. But he bought it for her right before we moved to New Hope. I was 14. And I remember him telling her, but she still disputed this up until the day she died. He told her at the time, he said, "This is your car until one of two things happens. You either graduate from college or you get married. And when you do, the car becomes Greg's." Well, she was so excited to get the Camaro, she agreed to it. But she forgot about the agreement. I was the one to remind him to, of course. She got married and graduated at the same time from college. And when this all happened, I went to her and I said, "Remember the deal? That car's mine." And she's like, "You're not old enough to drive it." And I'm like, "It doesn't matter." And so then she got so mad at me. I don't think she ever forgave me for that. It was one of the things she did.
I was mad at your daddy too. I thought, that is not right. Mama got so mad at your daddy because she loves Cheryl so much.
Mm-hmm.
And but when she got married, that did it. And I can't say what I can't say a lot. But your daddy was so upset, when she got married. And but Mama was so mad at him. And I was. I said, "That's not right. Buy Greg a car. That's her car. Let her have that. That's her car." And no, I promised it to Greg. And he kept his promise. But we were all upset, really upset with your daddy. And I still don't think that was right. I don't think it was right.
I don't know why he made that deal. I just remember when he made it. And I don't think Cheryl... Well, of course, at the time, she was happy to get it, so she was willing to make whatever deal that she could to get it.
Right.
And then he made her stick to it, and she was... I remember how upset she was, because she didn't forgive me for a long time for having that car. And I'm like, well, it's not my fault.
No, but I got on to your dad. Like I said, I never agreed to that. But it didn't matter about, like I say, your daddy didn't do things. It didn't matter to him. My thoughts didn't matter. Never, ever. Didn't matter. Until he got older.
Yeah.
He got older and it changed a lot, but I guess he thought I didn't have a lick of sense to make a decision. I mean, that's the way he treated me. Honestly, he treated me like, your decision don't mean nothing. You know? So, he made the decisions without, he talked about the churches that we went to. Your mom and I prayed about it. Mama had nothing to do. I guess I was praying right the opposite. Because I didn't want to move, you know. I was wrong. I wasn't praying for God's will to be done. I was praying for my will to be done.
Yeah. Like a lot of us do.
But I didn't want to move. I never wanted to move. And then after Cheryl hated Red Bay so much. Oh, bless her heart.
Well, she got the bad end of the deal. I mean, she just, you know, it was funny the times, the way it worked out for me, and of course I adapted easier, but, you know, from Colebit to Red Bay, I was through third grade, and I had friends, but again, you know, I was a third grader, so it wasn't that big a deal to move.
Right.
And then, you know, Red Bay, I didn't really care. I wasn't unhappy. I wasn't happy or unhappy. And then we moved back here. Well, I got to stay here from 5th all the way through 8th grade. So I was here for 4 years. And yes, I had a lot of friends at the end of 8th grade. But then I got lucky enough to go to New Hope and stay all 4 years of high school in one place. Well, see, Cheryl never got to do that.
Absolutely.
She got the raw end of the deal all the way around because...
Took her away from her best friend at her best time of life it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
The last few years of her senior, the last, you know, graduating with her friends. And she didn't get to do that.
Yeah.
So when she left school, went to Deshler, of course she still had a lot of friends at Sheffield. And they kept saying, Cheryl, why didn't you come back to Sheffield? Why didn't you come back? She's afraid they wouldn't have anything to do with her at the time. So she insisted on going to Deshler. Well, she ended up with no friends.
Yeah. Because she was the new girl, the senior in high school. That's just awful. She come from that awful situation in Red Bay where everybody hated her.
Yeah, because she won Miss Red Bay. So fortunately, they had out-of-town judges for that, or she wouldn't have got that. Yeah. It was a hard time for her.
Mm-hmm.
And that made it hard on me. Because she'd come in from school. She'd go back to her room, and you could hear her crying from one end of the room to the other. And you can't imagine what that does to a mother. And it's true, she's so involved with Tolly Clark. And Christy says she thinks she still loved Tolly. She said, Grandmama, I don't think she ever got over him. But I mean, your daddy broke that up. I'm glad he did. I mean, you know, here she was, 15 years old. And no, she had no business to get married at all. She was a sweet little old girl. She was, but made it hard on us every Friday as soon as school was over. She got in her car and took off back to Colebit to stay with Diane and Larry. And then went up to Betty's house, Betty Buttram. She was the one who was encouraging all of this for her and Tolly to get married. And it was hard. And I didn't know that for the longest, you know, that Betty was so again, so pulling it together, doing
So I wonder
all
what
she,
her interest in it was.
huh?
I wonder what Betty's interest in it was. Why did
She got married when she was about 14 or 15. And then her daughter did, Liz did. Well, it was fine for both of them. Liz is still married to the guy that she got married to. Betty was happy. She and John were happy. So she didn't see a thing wrong with Cheryl marrying Dolly. It's been a... But getting back home was a blessing. Get back in my home. And there again, I had to fight with your daddy to keep our house. That's when I put my foot. That was the one time I put my foot down. You're not selling my house. We don't have any use for it. Pastor's not supposed to own his own home. He's supposed to depend totally on God. And I said, I know that. I know that you're supposed to. That's my home. You're not getting... I said, you've done everything else. You've taken over. You made all the decisions all our life on what we did. That's my home. And I'm going back to my home. So he quit even thinking about selling. But believe me, he thanked me over. That was the best decision we ever made to keep our... I said, we had nothing to do with that decision. That was my decision. But we would have... When he retired, we had nothing to come back to, nothing. And what little savings we had would have been to buy a house.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It was a blessing. We had a home. And it took us a few years when we come back home, not long. It took us a few years to pay for it. But the house was paid for, and we built this on. And I had a fit over yours when we came to Mapleton, you know, that your little sunroom you had.
Mm-hmm.
And your daddy agreed. We enjoyed that so much up there that, yeah, we wanted a sunroom, so. And this has been a blessing. Loved my sunroom,
Yeah.
loved it.
Then we went to New Hope, 80 to 84. And then you left and went to Corinth Heights for 5 years, I think. It's like 89.
Mm-hmm. We stayed there 5 years.
And then you moved back here permanently.
Right. No.
No.
We left there and went to Harmony.
Yeah, in Moulton.
Yeah,
How long were you there?
about 18 months. And your daddy there again. He just up and said one day we're going home. I said, what? I mean, the church loved him, you know, and he said, we're going to go home. And I said, why? He said, I'm just tired. He said, I'm ready to retire. Well, he did retire. That was his first retirement when we come back home.
Yeah.
I didn't last. As soon as somebody called him to preach, he was gone. And he didn't quite retire for several more years. And
No, he didn't really retire until Alzheimer's kicked in, because he was still working.
he was
as
working
a
for
chaplain
hospice. Chaplain, yeah.
Yeah,
Good Samaritan.
so he didn't really retire until he was forced to retire.
That's right. That's true.
He wouldn't go to retire.
He really enjoyed working for Good Samaritan, though. I mean, he was working with patients on a daily basis, and he was good at it. He loved it. He really loved it. And the patients loved him.
That's a hard. I don't know how he did it. Everybody you work with is gonna die. You know they're gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty close to people, and
he took it real well. I couldn't have, I would have gotten so attached to him that it would have hung on forever. I couldn't have done something like that. He handled it real well. And I know he told about one lady that her husband passed away, and she had hospice, and he was a chaplain. He was there. Of course, they always called him if the patient was dying, you know, and to help the family out. And he said after he died, she crawled up in bed with him, hugging him and crying, "No, no, no, come back! You can't die on me. You can't!" And the nurses had to pull her off him. She wasn't gonna turn him loose. And he said it took her forever to let go. She just wasn't gonna do it. Well, that bothered him, you know, for the longest. But I mean, he ran into all kind of things like that, you know, that he had to deal with, but didn't bother him.
it didn't bother him until he got Alzheimer's, and then he'd already seen so many people die from it.
He knew exactly what he had. He knew it.
And he knew what he was going to have to go through.
But he'd get over in Florence or someplace, and he'd call me, and he said, "I'm turned around. I don't know where I'm at." And I said, "What is familiar around you? I said, "What street and all are you on?" And one time he was right there where he's supposed to be, at the nursing home, back behind the mall over there, so that one back that way. And he couldn't find him. And I said, "Well, okay, don't move. Just stay right there. Stay until," I said, "it'll come to you in a little while. Just wait until you get your bearings. Don't," I said, "pull over out of the street, get out of everybody's way, and it will," and I said, "just think, just get everything out of your mind. When it comes to you, then you'll find it." And he did. He called. I said, "Call, let me know." He did. Wasn't too long. He said, I know exactly where I'm at now." I said, "Okay." He'd already visited the patient. I said, "Come on home." But it was just about every time he left, so he knew, okay, it's time to get out of it. And then when he had that wreck down here,
Right.
that scared him literally to death. He said, "No more, no more." But one morning he got up and he wanted to go to Jack's, get us a biscuit for breakfast, and he couldn't find Jack's.
Huh.
He ended up Lister Hill, which is
Just down the street.
it's right down the street. And I said, "Where are you?" And he said, "At Lister Hill." I said, "Okay, there's Blake's Lawn Service." They're passing me right by.
Maybe he's going to turn around and come back.
No, they don't. No, they usually stop on their way. Then I've got a customer down that way. But he knew what was going on, you know. But that day when he come back home, he handed me the keys. He said, "That's it, no more, no more." And of course we was able to sell his car immediately. We were very fortunate because the guy bought it that had helped work on it after he had that wreck.
Yeah.
And he worked for Long Lewis over at the used car lot.
Yeah.
And he bought it. Frank called me, and it was $7,000 something. He said, "Would you take it?" I said, "Absolutely, we'll take it." So that was an immediate sale. Never put it up for sale or anything. That was a quick sale.
Yeah.
Blessed. But he never got behind the wheel of a car. Never had a desire to drive ever again.
Must have scared him.
He scared him. Scared him to death. He was standing there on the street corner right at the Ritz Theater where he had hit that pole. He was shaking. And, of course, he totaled that lady's car. He totaled it. But me and Cheryl and Frank got down there about the same time. And the fireman who used to live down here in Carolyn Whitlock's house, he was the one who'd called me and told me. He said, he's okay, but he's had a wreck. So I called crying and scared to death and called Cheryl and them, and she jumped in the car, they jumped in the car and run down there, and we got there at the same time. He was standing out in the street, and firemen all, standing around him, but